Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm glad to see that there are still people watching this insanity. I'm kind of surprised, but delighted.
Yeah, I look back at the videos and also hello everybody. Um, yeah, I will look on the channel and see that yay, people are watching what we're doing and knowing that it's not just us speaking into a void.
Yes, I am genuinely surprised. I was expecting like 100, and then like most of our episodes have in excess of 300, and a couple of them have hit 5, and I'm like, okay, you know what? We're doing something, and it's working, and I'm not going to argue.
Yeah, and it's also considering it's like what we do is literally what the algorithm does not want. We do our shortest episodes an hour and a half. I think not even that. We average 2 hours. Where we do what I call the well, there's your problem format, where it's just people talking with occasional pictures. So we're also doing such a unique niche that I'm
Yeah.
not so and it's also I'm sure you obviously promote it on your channel, but it's like we don't go to conventions and promote it. We don't do anything to advertise it. So I do have the funny thought of like, I hope one day we can do that. Like we would do an episode at a convention and we would talk to you would talk to the organizer of the convention and we would just do it live in a panel room.
I have been contacted by two people who I feel like would like each other in real life, but their governments wouldn't like the fact they like each other. In the
Yeah.
same week, by the way. And I verified these are real people before I continued talking to them.
Without going into too much detail, because this is a good segue into what we've been up to since the last episode. Are these like role play? Are these people who like you knew through video games, through your
On
channel?
fan fiction, where I write my Fallout Equestria stuff, and I'm finishing the last book, and then I guess I'm done making pony stuff after the last book, but that's just how it is. But anyway, um, I've been contacted by a Chinese person in Beijing and a Taiwanese person on Taiwan to re-upload my YouTube videos from Shotgun Angel to local services that are behind the Chinese firewall
Ooh.
because they want to share the Fallout Equestria stuff. And more importantly and hilariously, I might actually have to print books and ship them over there.
Now, wait, are we talking about, just for clarification, they want your videos and or books or videos and book? Well, wait, so what do they want?
They want to re-upload my videos, but give me full credit. And I said, okay, but you have to link me. You have to give me the links. You have to prove to me that you're giving me full credit. All this stuff, and I actually made them verify they're real people by taking pictures of themselves and their IDs, just so I can make sure that like I'm not talking to a scammer or a bot or something.
Yeah.
And then they want to figure out a way to get books to the small audience that's over there, and I'm like, I could just ship like a case to each of you, and then you could distribute the orders, but I'd need like in writing you're going to distribute them and not like charge them money or anything. And I'll pay for all the expenses therein once they for distribution purposes. But yeah, you like they're like super enthusiastic and they're working on transferring a bunch of the Shotgun Angel stuff, particularly the songs, over to their local service, which I believe is called, and it's two different people, which means that I don't think they're talking to each other.
Oh, okay. That makes a little bit more sense of what all of this is going
Yeah,
on.
it's two different people, and it's Billy, I think is what it is. It's the is the service that they want to put the videos on, which I checked out, and it appears to like just be the Mandarin version of YouTube that also works behind the Chinese firewall.
Hmm.
Like
Wait, so
I can view you can type it in and view it, but everything's in Mandarin.
right. Huh.
But yeah,
Interesting.
I'm just like, okay, that's an interesting week. And last night when we were playing the Warhammer Fantasy game, I had to burn a fate point to not die because I used a spell that you don't use unless you're prepared for the backlash, and I was not in a position to be prepared for the backlash. Uh, and I froze a Rat Ogre solid. We're gonna get to what that is when we talk about Kislev, but yeah, I froze a Rat Ogre solid head to toe.
Wait, I thought we talked about Kislev, or am I mixing names up?
You are mixing names up. We've mentioned Kislev a few times.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's also the problem about, I say that in air quotes, with this format and me, is like, some things I'll remember, like some things I will never get out of my brain no matter what we do, and some of that's a good thing and other things are a bad thing. But others are just like, they're in that middle ground where they're not memorable, so they kind of fall by the wayside.
So we talked about Kislev in our first episode with Norska. We talked about them again and the in the Gotrek and Felix episode, and we mentioned them in the dwarf episode because up north of Kislev is where the crazy Viking dwarfs come from.
Oh, okay, so it's one of those. It's kind of to God damn it, they get to make that mention again. It's like Vampire Pirates, where they just pop up no matter what.
Yeah, that's true. Stop! I knew what you were doing, editor. I knew what you were doing, editor. That does not count to put that clip in.
Fortune favors the infamous.
Yeah. So, no, I do find it interesting. What I do love about without going into a long bit about this, what I consider myself, I forget whatever the terms, I consider myself I forget even the term. Fuck it. A brony light. I enjoy the show. I've gone to conventions, but I wouldn't say. And yes, I have some of the art, but I'm not like, oh, I've watched every single episode and read all these fan theories. No, I enjoy the show for what it is, and I enjoy the art. So I wouldn't say I'm an outsider looking in, but like not a hardcore fan. But I always just what I love about the fan base is just how far of a reach it has, and how I remember being there in college when My Little Pony Friendship is Magic exploded. And it was just like almost a joke that it's like, you would think a show meant for little girls would have its seasons and then go. And then it became what it became, where you had all these people that weren't the intended fan base enjoying it and creating and inspired by it. I love that.
Yeah. And it's weird like that. I'm pretty sure that this is the last year I'll be doing brony conventions. It'll just be anime and game conventions next year, which is going to be a very limited number on top of that. But the reason why I'm sure this is the last year I'm going to be doing them is because once I finish the novel, I really don't have anything else to do. Like, I have nothing else left to write or write for, and I have no other, like, I guess you'd say I have no other, like, fan theories or science to explore. I have nothing. So it's just like, okay, well, once I finish that, I'm done. What do I do?
Right, because I haven't been keeping up with it. So what followed Friendship is Magic? I know the movie reboot, not the reboot, but the new movie happened, whatever gen they call it. Did that ever get a series, or was it just the movie? I can't recall.
It got a series, and it was generally so remember how Friendship is Magic didn't play safe at all and just ran with it and had fun with it, and you had stuff like the literal Dungeons and Dragons Manticore and like several different versions of dragons, including what could literally be referred to as anthropomorphic dragon, and just everything was just like, do what's fun. Gen 5 tried to play it entirely too safe and then tried to incorporate a shitload of Gen 4 stuff that they tried to shoehorn in to get Gen 4 fans. And it did not go well.
Yeah, it's a mixture of many things. I feel we could do a whole side episode on this, but in short, they try lightning does not strike twice, and the problem is Friendship is Magic, as I mentioned, was just a happy accident, and they just ran with it. But the problem
no. Lightning can strike twice, but
right. You have to. This is going to be a weird metaphor. You have to put the lightning rod up to get it the second time. It requires effort and quote unquote money and effort. So if Hasbro doesn't put in the effort and the risk, because to put that lightning rod up for the second time, you got to stand out there. And if you don't stand out there metaphorically, you're not going to get hit by lightning again. But yeah, so to get to the whole point is, Fee, you seem to agree, but I'm pretty sure from what I can observe, the My Little Pony fandom will always continue. I feel like it'll be something like Star Trek, or even before Next Generation came. It will always have a dedicated fan base, but it is no longer the big, huge wave that it was in, 2012 to 2018-ish, that era is kind of come and gone. We've always had the dedicated fans, but it's not mass appeal anymore. But anything else you've been up to, Fee?
Well, I was traveling for the entire month of May, which is why I think we recorded like once all month.
Yeah, and I kept noticing on your streams every so often your background changed, and I was like, I wasn't going to ask, but part of my brain was like, is something like unstable going on in V's life, or is she just like living the road warrior lifestyle? And it was never important for me to ask, but now that it's been brought up, was it just you decided to travel a bunch of places?
No, I have, I can now reveal what I was doing. There were some trans people that I know, outside of like most of my work and stuff. It's just people I know, who wanted to have a way to get out of their living situations or fix their living situations. So, and one of them we were guessing at the time was a target for ICE. So, instead of allowing anything to happen, I drove down, worked out one person's living situation a little bit, and then made sure that they got to Canada. Worked out another person's living situation and helped them out and tried to make their life a little better. And then two people had to be just flat out babysat to make sure they would get out of the country entirely. So I did that. And once all that was done, I mean, I can't really be arrested for helping someone self-deport, can I?
I think so. I hope not.
But they're safely back somewhere else where they have a measure of safety and a measure of people looking out for them, and they're taken care of. And that was just like my entire month. And then at the end of the month, last weekend, I was at the house that had agreed. The person said, yeah, you guys can stay here, use it for a safe house for a little bit, that's fine. At the end of the month, I was supposed to leave on Friday, and then he's like, I need to go to South Carolina to do some stuff, and nobody's going to be here for Memorial Day weekend. Can you stay and house sit? Sure. Just give me groceries. So we got groceries, and I stayed in house sit all weekend. But yeah, that's what was going on. And nothing happened. Nothing bad happened. No one had to deal with the authorities or anything like that. It's just we wanted to make sure that everybody got to where they were going safely, and I was kind of the facilitator with the car. And then one person who I was supposed to go get canceled because their living situation is they're afraid, and that's fair. That was what I was doing and where I was going.
And that was that I'm going to say really cool thing about that was really cool that you did. This is going to be. I'm going to say this as weird as a ally. There are moments I always feel just kind of helpless of like, what can I do? I try and do the little things, and it just sucks that our country is devolving. Yes, our country's fucking devolving. If you disagree with me, I don't think you are brainwashed. Our country is devolving right now. The fact that you had to do that awesome thing, we shouldn't be doing these things. Our country, I'm ashamed. I'm not proud to be an American. The fact that you had to do this, ugh. I'm gonna stop because I know we can do what we want.
I know, but like, you know,
yeah.
And to me, this was like what I would call dry run because there's not a lot of actual risk, but in the event that like my existence in my own country, which is what it's looking like they're trying to do, is made entirely illegal, then that means that there will be at 1.5% of the population. Let's just take the middle number.
Yeah.
At 1.5% of the population, that's 4.5 million people. And that's a statistic, but at the same time, that's the reality. So that means to me that there are 4.5 million people who are going to need saving, rescue, and shelter. Not, I should run for my own health. No, that's only going to happen if I know that I'm specifically being targeted and I need to go.
Yes, and I'll just say this to close on this topic for now. For those who are worrying and feel those who are legal voting citizens, remember, midterms. That's when Congress they're up for election. So guess what? There's a very small majority in House and Congress, House and Senate right now. What if it turns the other way? Things can change and they can put into laws no matter how much fucking orange wants to do stuff. Because the way our government's, there's checks and balances. So that's how we can get change. It's going to suck. We have to wait that long to get there, but we can.
And I'm sorry, and I'm sorry to soapbox for a minute. I know that turns some people off. That's why in the description there's like links to different parts. Usually, if I remember to put them up there, I apologize for not doing it. On the last episode, I was in a hurry to get it out, but yeah, there's usually in the description. You can just skip this part straight to the part where we talk about the Warhammer.
Yeah, but now we've talked about that. Let's. I'm going to talk about what I've been up to, because I've been up to a lot of stuff since last episode, which was it Japan? Was it Japan? Yeah, it was Japan.
Yep, we recorded Japan last time.
Which we discovered one of my new favorite characters, which we will not say until you go to watch that episode, because you would not expect this episode to get my favorite character. He's amazing, but that's all I'm going to say. So here's what I've been up to since then. My father had hernia surgery last week, and it was a really weird situation for me, because I'm perfectly calm during all this. He's, the normal amount of freak out that you would be for a surgery, but he's not like being like, oh God, no, but it's like, anytime you get a surgery, no matter what, you're always a little bit nervous, but he wasn't freaking out. I wasn't even, because I'm like, I've been through my mom's aneurysm. I've been through her shoulder replacement, through her back surgery. I've had back surgery. So I'm like, obviously any surgery has any amount of risks, but I'm like, this is a hernia surgery. It's outpatient. No big deal. And even goes to the pre-op, surgery goes well, they come back out. They're like, oh, the incision was a little bigger than we expected. Whatever. Get there, he's recovering, and I'm not even freaking out. It's not like I'm unemotional, but I'm like, happened before. And for me, this was like easy mode, because all the previous surgeries that with my mom, I had to drive down to Boston because I wanted, and all this. So I'm just like, I didn't even have to drive that far. I drove to Burlington, which for me isn't that long of a drive. I stayed at his place, what to do, and just taking care of him and having to tell my father, Dad, just relax, and just being his caretaker. And he's like, wow, you're really good at this. I'm like, yeah, I've done this before. So, and just checking in on him, making sure he's resting, because my father's just a very active person, and one of the things about most surgeries is you have to then not be active afterwards. So just reminding him to just take it easy. All right, that's out of the way. One of the annoying things that has been going on with me is I went on unemployment, but they said I had to wait to get the check in the mail first before I could then do everything online. Haven't gotten that. So long story short, I've been really short on money, and also fuck overdraft fees. Fuck you that you charge money when then someone has no money. Fuck you. I think that should be fucking illegal. Anyways, because the annoying thing too is like I've been working here and there and I have money, but I get paid bi-weekly. Yay. It was actually interesting. I've been working in the local for like 10 years, and finally I get to work the main stage, like actually do sound there. And it was for like some comedian, and like kind of someone who was my sponsor in the local and still a good friend of mine. He was just so proud. It's like, finally you're here. And I was like, no, I know. It's just this great feeling. But I had to also not tell him something, because this is also good news. I mentioned in the Warhammer Japan episode that I was applying to Cunard, and the good news, I have gotten the position. I got the email saying we are offering you to work for here, and I've accepted it. So I get going through this whole onboarding process, and oh boy, do the British like their documents and forms you need to fill out. Fee, I'm sure you're aware of that too, like how much the British love their forms.
Yes.
Yeah. So obviously,
yes,
it's maritime.
I spent 45 minutes last time I went to the UK filling out forms at the border.
Yeah, and this is for like, regardless of the country, you always got to fill out stuff. But it's like because I'm working, so I'm gonna have to. I'm still not done a bunch of these. I have to do I have to fill out a visa form. I have to fill out a special identification form. And I've been through some of this when I worked for NCL. But I realized because I was working for a ship that was based in America and I'm an American citizen, there was a whole bunch of things that just did not have to be done because it's like, well, you're already a legal citizen. This is, well, you're a citizen from another country, regardless of all the politics. These are forms that have been around for years. So it's just like, yeah, you got to do all this stuff. But it's still very exciting to do this because I'm like, I'm sure I mentioned it before, but just like, cool, I get to work on these ships and just going to cool places. I'm sure I'll talk more about this as even before this call started, I was filling out a bunch of forms. One of them was the uniform chart, which I'll briefly say when I worked on Pride of America, I didn't fill out that form and they had to figure out the sizes then. And the problem was they didn't have shirts in my sizes. I wear 2XL. So literally they gave me like 2 shirts. And later on when I wanted extras, they had to sew together 2 mediums. And I'm like, this is a multi-billion-dollar company, a ship that makes $9 million a week. We can't order new shirts. While with Cunard, it's like, oh, I'm hoping, and I have a feeling it is. They're like, okay, he's these sizes and measurements. Let us get the shirts and uniforms ahead of time. What a concept. And it's also what's nice too is they have this whole website that has frequently asked questions. I still got some here and there, but it's like, you guys actually know what you're doing and understand that people new to this process don't know everything. But I could go on and on about that. Other things I've been up to. One thing that was a little frustrating that I've been trying to do for the past week is, I know you use Linux, right?
I don't use it anymore, but yes, I used to.
Yes, but you know that with Linux, if you're trying to use some software, for those who are just Windows or Mac users, Windows and Mac, almost all the programs you use have a simple wizard or installer. Linux is different. With the specific software I want to install, DaVinci Resolve, it comes with an installer, but the way that Resolve and Linux work, it will make it seem like it's done the process, but it isn't installed. The desktop shortcut doesn't show up. So I spent like days, not like full days, but like a couple of days going, okay, CD, downloads, SH, learning what the hell all those things meant.
There's installer quotation marks for any Linux program. For anyone who's curious, it's installer quotation mark. It's not, a lot of the time, like when I was using Linux, a lot of the time I couldn't play a game on release day because I had to do what's called build a bridge, which is where you create the software for the game to cooperate with you. So, basically, you're basically making it where the game can talk to your operating system.
Yeah, and the thing about, like, I know I think, is it called Wine, where someone, at least there's kind of a box you can make to work within it. Resolve does not, and someone even made, so they called it like DaVinci Box, and I was like, all right, cool, because I was trying to do all the like code stuff in Terminal, and it's still like, what was the most frustrating thing? You don't know, one of the top frustrations as in tech I've experienced is putting the window that has where the setup file is in downloads, and I type in Terminal CD downloads, and I get the response, this file directory does not exist. And I just want to punch a wall because I'm like, it's right there. And I'm sure there's like, if I showed someone the problem, be like, oh, you need to just put this one thing instead. But it is incredibly frustrating that I'm like, I've seen people like do tutorial videos on here's how to get DaVinci Resolve to work on Linux because I have a Steam Deck. And when I go on the ship, I want to have a video editor. And yes, there's free editors, but I like Resolve. And my laptop cannot handle Resolve. It turns into a slideshow. But it was fun, at least, to learn about it. But I'm like, I want this to work. But
I'm gonna hug you.
Yes.
I understand your computer problems. but
Yeah.
they're only going to get worse.
Yeah, I'm sure at some point I will finally figure it out, and that will be the day I scream in joy.
Mm-mm.
I'm just going to just be like, fine.
So what you need to do is look. You need to try to install 10 programs. Okay? And you're trying to install 10 programs so you can create a standardized template that you can just copy and paste in and then fill in the variables and the blanks in order to make your installation process smooth. And then every program that comes out will need a little tweaking here and there. Your other option, and this is the fun option, is to install a virtual machine and just run anything that needs Windows off the virtual machine until you figure it out.
Yeah,
like
I know.
this way, if you need emergency stuff, you could just run it on the virtual machine.
Yeah, I might have to, but the only normally, and I know I've used what is it called, VirtualBox or virtual? No, I think it's even called Virtual Machine before. And normally, I agree that process works, but the thing is, Resolve is such a processor-heavy thing that even running it within the virtual machine. But you know what? I will give that a try, and just to see, be like, fuck it, can I at least get Resolve? I want to. You will see in the server when I finally get Resolve. I will take a picture of it. I just want Resolve on my goddamn Steam Deck. But anyways, speaking of like accomplishments, though, I've been trying to get back into learning a bit more on Blender and just kind of messing around with like, there's a tab called sculpting. As it sounds, it's sculpting like you do clay. And I was just trying to make something move right. I was like, why does this look so jagged? And then I'm like, oh, I just need to make more subdivisions. It just needs more information. Ta-da! I think that's pretty much about it on what I've been up to. But for media, I've watched. Finally got back into watching anime again. I know I need to get more into Freerin, but I've been watching a little bit of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and realize, as much as I love that show, sometimes I'm like, it's the same thing I gave the rant about Persona 5, which I've also been playing and made progress on that, where it's like, can we please get to the plot? Why are you then putting yet another bit of filler? And this is not putting down JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Many other series are just as guilty of it. It's like, you know, your team or your hero is about, you know, ready to encounter the big bad of the season. And they're like, nope, here's a mini boss. And it's like, yes, this mini boss is well written and all this, but I'm like, can we just get to the boss that you've been telling us about since episode 1? But my real rant,
it would be nice.
I know. Yeah. Have you ever seen the movie Devil Wears Prada?
Yes.
Oh boy, I have thoughts about that movie, and I'm going to summarize them because I could rant an hour about this. So it's supposed to be a comedy, and parts of it are funny, but it's like, okay, this was a movie made in the early 2000s, and it shows. Like some movies, every decade has an era where it's like, this movie is from here, and it did not age well. Devil Wears Prada is a perfect example. It looks great because obviously people are wearing fashion, but there are character moments that I'm just like, what? Here's a perfect example because I'm going to spoil this movie. I don't care. It's over 20 years old. If you haven't seen it at this point, I don't care. Where our main gal, and there's like, she's the assistant, but then she's the assistant to the assistant. The assistant gets in an accident, and then the assistant gets to go to France. Then the bitch boss says to her, I forget what she basically says. Oh yeah, you're not kind. You did this to her. And I'm like, and there isn't like, some movies will try and do that and like re-show us the scene and give us a bit of information where in reality they were actually doing this thing to plot their downfall. No, Devil Wears Prada doesn't do that. So I'm like, why are you making her feel like shit on something she did not cause the assistant to get in the accident? The assistant got in the accident because she was a dumbass being on her phone and walked into traffic. She didn't shove the assistant into traffic. So the whole point of her feeling guilty about it makes no sense. And another stupid trope it does when she tries to inform her boss about the conspiracy is it does this thing and where it then gives us information we didn't have before. And it's a problem that also the Sherlock reboots have too, where it's like, there's this new information. How are we supposed to know that? Also, the Man from U.N.C.L.E. reboot does that problem too, where it's like, you didn't notice this thing. How could I not notice it? Because you never showed it. So, man, that movie I was so pissed off at that movie. And but I will end on a fun note, a piece of media I really enjoyed. There's a YouTuber named Polyphonic. He does a ton of great videos about music.
Mm-hmm.
And he did a great episode recently about the band Idol's album, Joy as an Act of Resistance, and talking about how they present a healthy version of male masculinity. I don't want to tell too much more about the video, except if you are someone interested in just that whole topic. For me personally, even as a cis male, it's a great video of just being like, yes, we no longer don't have to have this stupid, unrealistic version of masculinity, that some other more healthy alternative is being presented. Is like, yes. So what about you, Fee? Any media of note you've been...
I watched Mickey 17.
Wait, what is that?
So I've read the book. Let's start there.
Okay.
Mickey 17 is about a man who, desperate to get off Earth for a variety of reasons, one of which involving a mafia boss who just likes killing people, wanting to kill him, trying to get off Earth, and he agrees to be what the movie calls an expendable. And what it is they have a system where they can 3D print you a new body and re-upload your memories and mind into that body so you don't forget anything. But the catch is you're basically agreeing to be a human guinea pig that will be repeatedly over and over again mutilated in the worst possible ways. And he agrees to do this on a colony ship from a failed senator who's leaving and being sponsored by a church. There is all sorts of social commentary here.
Yeah.
And it only gets wilder from there. But yeah, no, it is just... It approaches things as a comedy. It is fun and hilarious. It is insane in some of its concepts, and it is just plain fun.
So, like, is its tone, like, I'm trying to think, is it like where on the spectrum of tone? Is it being like super serious, like a Black Mirror, or is it being more Mel Brooks in it? Where in the spectrum does it apply?
You want to know where in the spectrum does it apply?
Yeah, because you're talking about it being funny, so is it taking it as a silly? Where in the serious silly is it being?
Okay, so if you want to know if as far as it being funny, it takes the spectrum of what I can only describe as what would happen if Mike Myers and Mel Brooks made a political satire.
Okay, that tone. Okay, I gotcha.
There's a scene where he's just out there repairing something on the side of the colony ship on their 4-year generation journey, and they go, "So Mickey, we got bad news. You're not just out there to fix that. We need to know what happens with the cosmic radiation you're being exposed to. You've already been exposed to lethal levels, so we just need to know how your body degrades and what happens while you're out there."
Okay, so it's the kind where it's logic has a light relationship with the plot. Okay.
Like the opening has him lying at the bottom of a cliff, and you ever had like a friend who's like the worst friend ever?
Yes, and I try to keep them out of my life, but I know what you mean. Like, wait, what do you mean by worst?
He rappels down and goes, "Hey, Mickey, I thought you'd be dead already. Oh, hey, look, a flamethrower. Hey, look, your flamethrower. Armory will love to see this returned. Aren't you gonna help me?" Well, I mean, I mean, you're asking me to risk my life when they'll just print you a new body, so I'm just gonna leave you here to freeze to death or get eaten by whatever those things are. Have a nice day. That's the opening of the movie.
Okay, that's the kind of movie we're dealing with. Gotcha.
Yeah, so like great movie. 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10 even. Like honestly, excellently done political satire. Absolutely absurd in a lot of its concepts and craziness, and totally worth it. Like, I cannot praise this movie enough. It was definitely 100% worth my time. And I would do it again. In a heartbeat. So yeah, it's good fun. It is wonderfully good fun.
Speaking about wonderfully good fun, let's talk about vampires.
Fortune favors the...
Yes, let us talk about the vampiros. So, this is gonna be the start of this section. By the way, everybody, we're to the meat and potatoes of the podcast. We had our appetizer, we had our tea, we had our preparation. So this is gonna be like, I have to build to the vampires for a minute. Okay. So, part of the vampire counts of Sylvania requires a bit of understanding of the original vampires. And the original vampires in what is the era in which the Old World and Warhammer Fantasy take place, that's the same universe, just two different names, is from the Tomb Kings, who were literally... What would happen if ancient Egypt mummies got up and were vampires?
Wait, what?
Yeah, you heard me. Look, I'm gonna show you the architecture they found of their city. This is Nehekharam, city-state of Kimri, original home of Nagash, the first vampire. What's left of it? This is exactly what it looks like.
If you were to tell me, okay, Egypt but Warhammer, yeah, this is pretty much the image I'd have in my head.
So, I'm not going to explain the Tomb Kings in this episode. They deserve 2 of their own episodes. You heard that correctly. 2. We're going to be splitting that one in 2.
Our first two-parter, because I don't think we've had a two-parter yet.
Yes, it's going to be our first 2-parter. And probably immediately after this episode, it's going to be just a 2-parter, and then we're going to take another break with a different topic for a moment. But the point here is this. Nagash is the first vampire. He invents necromancy and vampirism from the winds of magic. He's the dude that does this.
So we're on the timeline, because I forget how in Warhammer time. Like obviously in our world we have AD and BC. Like how?
Yeah, their world is negative and positive IC. That's the imperial calendar. When the empire is founded by Sigmar, is generally the accepted calendar. In this case, this is negative 3000.
Jesus. Okay.
Nagash invents necromancy and vampirism and becomes the world's first lich. And then he's rebelled against by all his subjects, priests, and kings who also want immortality and vampirism and all that shenaniganry. And this is back, when people are using Bronze Age weapons. So one of the funny things with the Tomb Kings is all of their units are still using Bronze Age weapons, which can still kill you and are magically infused, but you can break them. Like, you can actually use, like, a steel weapon and shatter their weaponry.
Now, before we go further, what is the difference between a lich and a vampire? Because I hear the term interchangeably sometimes.
So, in Warhammer, a lich is someone who's like in D&D, a lich is someone who has a way of self-resurrection as an undead entity. And a vampire is someone who drinks human blood, or in the case of the Tomb Kings, sucks out the soul and then consumes your soul, which means that you're not just dead. They sent you. They oblivioned you. You're gone forever. There's not even a soul left.
All right, because in theory, and there's versions of it I'm sure we'll get to, with vampirism, there is the the whatever the term is, the gentle way where someone can vampire can drink blood and not kill the person. But anyways, so with that difference out of the way,
So we have that, and then we have so his subjects rebelled and killed him and entombed him in the Black Pyramid because they knew they couldn't kill him permanently. By the way, Nagash is the reason the world ends in the end times. Entirely his fault. It's also believed that Nagash is the figure who showed up to the city that is now Skavenblight and delivered the first Skaven bell to see what would happen. There's no proof of this. It's just believed, and there's like a one-liner Nagash says in the end times that indicates it's his fault the Skaven exist.
okay, so we're still talking about the same dude right now.
Yeah,
right?
we're still talking about the same dude.
Wait, so the dude, the first vampire, is also the reason the end times is the end times, and he's the reason the Skaven exists. Also, is that a fan theory or is that a lore theory?
That's a lore theory.
Okay.
There's no proof save for a one-liner he uses.
Okay.
And his subjects rebelled against him, stole the keys to what they thought was Lichdom, and instead became vampires. Whoops. But then, the problem with their vampirism...
Side note, I'm just thinking, he goes, damn, where'd I put my keys?
They found out it's a curse. Not because vampirism still has your body decay.
Oh no, it's doing that.
Unless you satisfy its thirst for the living. Which means that there's large portion, which means by the time the Tomb Kings get to our modern era, which is what we're getting to now, their bodies are partially mummified in order to try to preserve them. In some cases, fully mummified in order to try to preserve them, because no one lives in that desert anymore. Because their once tropical paradise that they originally inhabited, they sucked all the life out of the land itself and turned it into a vast deserts of Araby and the Tomb Kings. So they go through long periods of torpor to try to conserve energy and only wake up when living beings show up to try to do something in their realm. So you can get away with it for like a week, but as soon as like you trip one of those magical barriers, you need to leave because the Tomb Kings are coming and it's not going to be good. So with that, we're going to stop talking about the Tomb Kings and move into what's considered by Warhammer standards the modern vampirism.
Now, just quick before we does the lore ever go into him discovering this, or is it just he happens to know it and the lore doesn't explain it?
The lore goes into great, extreme pains of detail to explain vampires, Nagash, the Tomb Kings, the whole 9 yards.
Okay, so there's a whole written process. All right, cool. Go on.
All right, so we have what is going to become the Vampire Wars.
Vampire Wars, okay.
Nagash's curse had a range limit of the lands he ruled. And when several of these vampires found out, they fled his wrath north. And there were 7 surviving vampire lords who underwent separate journeys to different places. One went far east to Cathay. Another disappeared into the howling northern chaos wastes. And the last 4 stayed in various parts of the Empire, Bretonnia, and the southern princedoms. So from there are 4 major vampire bloodlines that are created because of this, because each of these 4 vampire lords has a unique form of necromancy.
Okay, interesting. Go on.
So we have Blood Dragon, the Necroc, the Stirogi, and the Lamiana.
I like how the names progressively got more Italian sounding.
Yeah. The Lamiana is the most human. it has an extreme the magic has an extreme focus on making sure you don't decay and that you don't ebb away. But the problem is it doesn't give them a lot of like the vampiric strength and the vampiric power. So and the vampire lines cannot mix. There's like one instance where they mixed and like that guy's dead by Gotrek cutting his head off. So that never happened again. But these are the pretty vampires, the Twilight vampires, the vampires who are here to seduce you.
Okay, when do we get into the Alucard Helsing vampire?
Getting there.
All right.
That's the Necroc. The Necroc vampires can only wear the illusion of being human temporarily. But the Necroc vampires are also the old ones. When they reveal their true form, it is, well, this is kind of what you're looking at.
Oh boy.
And another example is this one sitting over, he not only drank the Skaven, but he eats the Warpstone too and consumes its magic.
Oh,
They are vampires who not only consume blood, but they also consume magic. They actually drink it. They're the super powerful vampire sorcerers, and they get more powerful the more stuff they consume. So
I'm just also trying to wrap. Just pump me the brakes for a moment, Fee. I'm wrapping around the idea of vampires not only drinking Skaven blood, which I'm sure has to be a very special level of but then they're eating radiation, and I'm like, that's going to cause a very special level of chaos.
Now, the next bloodline is the Strogi, and these are like your ghoulish vampires that they have no human form left.
Oh god,
they are your animalistic horror shows. And they revel in it. They revel in finding ways to augment their bodies even more.
This is the kind of art that I would expect. This is the zoomed in portion of a Cannibal Corpse album cover before you zoom out and it's the things that get censored. But yes.
Then you have your we are still human vampires. Okay. These are called the Blood Dragons. Oh. They actually adhere to the tenets of Bretonnian knighthood, twisted to their own way, and they don't drink blood from people. They eat other vampires.
Okay, that took a very interesting turn. I am very intrigued by this one. So are they?
They will drink the blood of a person if they are standing in the way of their objective. But
okay.
Their focus is on hunting the other monsters. They are the monsters that hunt monsters.
So, for lack of a better comparison, they are the vampire versions of the Skaven. That why do I always forget the name of what they are? The actual good Skavens.
Yes, the problem is they can't control that hunger, so there came a point where they are now full vampires.
Right. I was just more using it as a comparison in lore, but okay.
So there's there's this idea of the nobility of being a knight forever and hunting vampires that it starts as, and it ends as them becoming monsters who not only prey on other vampires, they delight and revel in preying on other vampires, but they also now prey on the very people they were supposed to protect as well.
Oh, god damn it.
Because they see themselves as the immortal beings who know better, and your blood is going to keep me going so I can continue my crusade.
Oh, Warhammer, you have this great idea, and I know it's a commentary, but it's like, come on, guys. But anyways, go on.
And then the last one, the last bloodline is that's the four. That's Lamia, Blood Dragon, Sterogi, and Necroc. And the person we're going to talk about is the last bloodline, the von Karstein.
Okay, yeah, the one that comes up a lot in the stories we've been talking about.
So I need to emphasize this point. Von Karstein is both Romeo and Dracula.
Okay.
In the year 1797. Which, by the way, the Warhammer Fantasy game we're playing in on Wednesday night is set at the start of the big vampire war that I'm about to go over. So if you want to show up on Wednesday night on Twitch and hang out there, that's cool. We're gonna stop just a second. Patreon, pledge on Patreon so we can have more artwork made for this shit. I have a Warhammer piece of artwork right now, actually, that was made for Wednesday night. That's kind of okay, to be honest. It's been the best received piece of artwork we've had made in a while, and it's just Lucia the Ice Witch handing the fresh out of college student who just had to shoot and stab a bunch of Skaven a flask of homemade gin. So anyway. So
yeah, it's a good piece of artwork, and it sums up your setting very well. It's a great piece of artwork. Also, side question: is it just the way the perspective is? I swear your character was taller, or is he also very tall?
No, she's short.
Oh, okay. Just all the art, your icon every Wednesday makes it appear she's tall. But anyways.
Yes, that's because she has a big hat. But to show you her actual height, so this bear is 5'5" at the shoulder.
Oh. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot more sense.
She's short. She's very strong, but she's short. Anyway,
yeah.
So we have Otto von Drac, the last of the Drakenhoffs, and he lives at a place called Castle Drakenhof.
I'm sorry, Fee. I'm trying to take the name seriously, but this has the same energy of McBoatface.
Yes,
But
yes,
go
it
on.
does. Like having to read 2 novels for this podcast this week. Yeah, I do a lot of extra research for this. No, and every time it said every time I had to read about Otto von Drac and Castle Drakenhof, I'm like, this is like Bodie McBoatface.
Yeah, like if it's like
This was written in the late 80s, early 90s. This is Bodie McBoatface before the internet. Fuck.
Yeah. Like some names are like really you couldn't have found some strange Austrian, German, Austro-Hungarian name. No, this one. But anyways,
So he is dying on his deathbed and upset that his daughter is unmarried by his. So this is a man who is Schadenfreude the dude.
no,
He's upset that his only daughter is unmarried
Okay.
and hasn't had a child, so he has no male heir. But she's unmarried because he refused everyone who requested her hand in marriage because he hated them all.
I have so many things to say about that because I've had not exact circumstances, but situations where someone's like, oh, why does anyone not to date me? I don't know, because you've rejected anyone who's tried to give you a good romantic offer. But anyways, go on about this asshole.
So he prayed to anyone who would listen. And what he did not know was the entire time a man named Vlad von Karstein, our vampiric villain person, had been influencing and preying on him. And the priest of Sigmar, who had been sent to see to his dying days, fainted as a storm gathered. And out of that storm came a carriage of black, pulled by black withered steeds. And on the door knocked a stranger who introduced himself as Vlad von Karstein, which is someone that Otto Leopold von Drac didn't know. And refused to let him in at first. And then Otto von Drac, the person in charge, was like, no, let him in. And Vlad would woo in the dying days Mr. Drac into convincing him to let him marry Isabella. And literally, the marriage ceremony took place 5 seconds before the Count dropped dead.
Okay, weirdly, I don't know if romantic's the word to use. Obviously, we know there's not good things going to happen, but okay, give him his dying wish. I've listened to enough Warhammer to know where this is probably going.
Yes, Vlad was using and manipulating him and Isabella for power, and even used his vampiric charm to control her at times. But surprisingly, despite all of this, they actually fell in love, and it was Vlad who woke up, who awoke from his vampiric sleep one evening and went, "I love her. Wait, I'm not supposed to love anyone. What the fuck?"
Okay, this suddenly got really fucking interesting. Let's go.
And so, over the course of a month, he slowly brought Isabella into his vampiric world and explained it all to her. And after much debate, where Vlad was because Vlad realized he loved her and she loved him back, he didn't want to give her the blood kiss and turn her into a vampire.
All right, so quick pause. So I knew you were saying it, but just for confirmation, and it's like not like, oh, he was using his charm, and it's like legit. She does fall in love with him. The charm was the start, but she does have legit.
He fell in love with her first, and she fell in love back.
Oh my god, let's go.
Vlad did not want to give her the blood kiss. He loved her too much to subject her to the problems of being a vampire.
These are the kind of stories I live for. Because how do you make a not human character relatable as you give them human traits? Yes!
So, Isabella kept begging him for it. And then, while Vlad was away, as he continued to prepare for his war against the Empire, in hopes of, not only ruling what was slowly becoming all of Sylvania, but becoming emperor himself. Man has ambitions.
Yes, you got to get the man is on that grind set.
However, Isabella fell sick with a known disease that's incurable. She fell into a coma.
Wait, so is this before or after the marriage?
This is after the marriage. This is after their declared love. This is like midway through him preparing for vampire wars and everything, and having denied her the blood kiss, and wanting her to live a mortal life.
Okay, continue. Go on.
His chief physician came to him and said, "Her heart has stopped. She's dead." And the count sent them all away as calmly as possible. And then, as soon as everyone was out of the room, in an absolute fit of rage, destroyed the entire room, Beauty and the Beast style.
But okay,
again, there is a hole in the side of Drakenhof Castle that he refuses to get repaired because to him it is the symbol of his ultimate shame. Because he made that hole.
Interesting. Again, this character I find so fascinating. So where it's like,
hold on, no, you're gonna find. I'm gonna let you comment after this last statement.
Okay, here we go.
3 days later, Isabella appeared fully recovered, though ever afterwards pale and thin, and only ever leaving her chambers once the sun was down. So you know what he did.
Oh yeah, I know what he damn well did.
But yeah, this is Mr. von Karstein's start.
Okay, without jumping too much more, do we get more about her, or is that kind of the last real mention of her in the story? Beyond, not counting end times. Okay, so she's active in her story. She's active in this story.
Hyperactive.
All right. Okay. So quick side note. This is the romantic version. People argue with me about this. what I love about Hellsing is dealing with how it deals with Cerys becoming a vampire and all of that. That story, when, oh God, yes. So that's also one of the many reasons why I enjoyed that series so much. But go on before I fanboy about one of my favorite series more. Go.
So, for generations, Vlad and Isabella preside over Sylvania, seemingly unchanged. And few people, peasants and middle class people really don't pay attention to who's ruling them so long as the rulers aren't like assholes. So no one realized that they hadn't had a new ruler, since like my grandpa's grandpa.
That'd be the equivalent of in the theoretical. This is, alternate history. In theory, if FDR never died and people just going, we've had the same president for a really long time. That's the only modern equivalent.
And then someone remembered a great-great-grandmother, a minor noble in Castle, who was staying in Castle Draftenharp, made a remark. When I was a girl, von Karstein was in power, and my grandmother remembers when he came to power. How old is he? So now, even the stupidest peasants were starting to realize something ain't right here. And word spread to the Empire, and they sent the witch hunters. However, every witch hunter that went to investigate the von Karstein family never returned.
Now, without getting too much, now you said family, I'm assuming, okay, in this world, can vampires have offspring? Or at least the von Karsteins, can they?
Yes and no. Can they birth a child as a human would? No. Can they impart their original human DNA effectively into various pieces of people and assemble a new person from, dead pieces and then embrace them into being a vampire and create a person that way? Yes.
Okay, interesting. Which on a side now that I think about it, I don't think even more modern stories, I think typically even when you have the more like progressive, really progressive, but also conservative, that makes sense with vampires. I don't think even, offspring doesn't seem to be a thing vampire lore does. But anyways, go on.
So for centuries, he was preparing for the vampire war. Him and Isabella both were scheming because they saw a path with patience and the immortality they had to the seat of the imperial throne to become the emperor. Because if you remember in the Lost Emperor episode that we're going to have to redo, the emperor is elected by the elector counts. It's not a genetic bloodline.
Right.
That means that anyone who's an elector count can become emperor, and Vlad is count of the province of Sylvania and has a vote and can also run for election.
Ooh.
So
him and Isabella are the definition of a power couple right now.
they are Warhammer Fantasy's power couple. So at first, the new nobles didn't pay any heed to the commands coming from Vlad, and if it bothered him, he showed no outward sign of it at all. He cherished his subjects in the same way that a peasant family cherishes a pig they're fattening up for winter.
That got really nice until you gave the last part.
Yeah, he's getting it home, baby.
I need to not get my hopes up so much in the setting fee. Every time I think, oh.
Then some of the minor nobles of Sylvania started getting unnaturally long lives. And they appeared to be the ones who were on Vlad von Karstein's inner circle council.
I can see where this is going already, but keep going.
Then, after nearly 300 years, in 2010 Imperial calendar, Vlad began to bring his plan to fruition on the guaranteed night of Gehennisnacht, which I haven't explained this, but there are actual full-on holidays in Warhammer. Gehennisnacht can happen. So first off, Gehennisnacht can happen randomly, but also there's one night of the year where it's guaranteed, and it is the night where the realm of chaos and the realm of the souls and the mortal realm have the thinnest veil, because both the false moon and the true moon come out together and eclipse the sun.
That day.
Yeah. Yes, it's the time when magic is its most powerful and uncontained.
Yeah, that's the first story in the Gotrek and Felix novel, right?
Yep.
Yep. All right, keep going.
So, he's holding a festival for Gehennisnacht called Totentaz, the Dance of the Dead, where you come and dance and celebrate all your ancestors, hang up pictures of them and everything.
Yeah, I'm sure you just said it, but it's Austro-Hungarian Mexican Day of the Dead, basically, if I'm getting this right.
Vlad brought in every single person who could possibly oppose him, and on his order, his undead minions, his vampire servants, every single human who was still remotely in power in Sylvania was murdered. 2 people survived. One was a loyal human servant of Vlad, who was there from then on, the human who would act as Vlad's diplomat. And the other was a witch hunter who was trained in a little bit of magic. And he used that magic to conceal his life force underneath a pile of corpses.
Yep, that's Warhammer.
And it's important. This witch hunter is very important for one very, very big reason. Because he's a witch hunter, his word is considered truthful. His name is Stefan Fischer. And he would escape while pretending to be a zombie, using his magic to conceal his breath and his beating heart. And his only thought while he was trying to escape this trap was, they are coming. He stayed with the undead army, hiding in their ranks. I want you to imagine the discipline this man has to have. He has to act like a zombie. He has to continuously pretend to act. He has to find a way to sleep. He has to find a way to eat. And he has to stand. He can't ever lay down for weeks to pull off this level of infiltration. And if he ever acts even remotely out of sorts, a vampire will know.
This is something that, like, if Games Workshop ever had some, like, either I'm sure someone's had the idea, but if someone actually, instead of making that god awful 40K series you reviewed and I had to edit, like, these are the stories that's like, this is the kind of story that an animated episode, people would be like, yo, dude. Like, okay. So this dude who has, like, that discipline. So go on.
So, in the battle, Fisher switch sides mid-fight, and they arrive at Essenford for this big battle with the Imperial army that's come to meet this undead horde. The Imperials not knowing what the fuck's going on, except by the letters that Fisher had been smuggling out of the undead army.
How the hell he do, like, all the other
This
stuff
man was like James Bond, a ninja, and for absolute spite purposes, a necromancer all put into one dude. He had, like, all of the witch hunter training and was bringing he was actually up for election for witch hunter general at one point.
Jesus, this dude should have won by a landslide. My God.
But then, as fate would have it, the battle was hopelessly lost from the beginning. The Imperial army had been ambushed and caught out of position, knee-deep in mud and horrible swamp conditions, and were being overwhelmed by sheer numbers. In addition to their inexperience fighting undead and understanding how to kill them properly. Entire volleys of handgunner fire that would have devastated formations normally only killed a couple, because they weren't aiming it right. And Fisher's brother, John Seckland, who had become a vampire, after the battle, chose his brother to kill as a show of demonstration of power, and bled his brother dry and drank him dry. He went through all of that only for his brother, who had become a vampire, to betray him. And that is the start of the Vampire Wars.
Ooh.
And it would be one thing if the Vampire Wars were a short war. The first Vampire War lasted 41 long, bloody, terrible years, and saw 2 grand orders of knights of the Empire fall. Whole cities were burned. They only were finally stopped at the imperial capital of Altdorf, because Altdorf had been preparing for their attack for 10 years.
And this is all led by von Karstein, right?
Yep, this is all led by Vlad von Karstein and his wife Isabella. And his wife Isabella used her abnormally human appearance to pretend to be a variety of noble ladies and perform spy missions and infiltration and constantly swindling imperial plans, or even planting newly founded vampires in among the imperial ranks. This is also why the witch hunters surged in power and influence, because they had to root out the enemy within.
Now, okay, if von Karstein's goal was to become the next emperor, he kind of like... I feel declaring war kind of is like, well, you kind of fucked it up now, buddy. You had a chance, and now you don't.
And at the Battle of Altdorf, Wilhelm III, Emperor of the Empire, fought this man. I think he was Emperor. Let me double check. I'm pretty sure he was the Emperor at the time. I want to make sure. No, he was not. I stand corrected. He was the Grand Theologist of the Cult of Sigmar. He was the Pope.
Wait, so you can have a Pope and an Emperor?
No, he wasn't the Emperor. Yeah, you can have a Pope and an Emperor, 2 separate people. The
Okay.
Pope fought Vlad von Karstein on the battlements of Altdorf, because Vlad himself went to the battlefield knowing that his undead minions were not going to be able to break through without his assistance. And after he had been mortally wounded, in a surge of adrenaline with his literal insides spilling out, Wilhelm tackled Vlad off of the embattlements. And while the fall wouldn't have normally killed Vlad, they landed on a wooden cavalry stake. And the stake didn't kill Vlad, but it did completely incapacitate him and put him into a torpor. And into a torpor. It's a kind of coma.
What's the difference between that and a regular coma?
As soon as the stakes pulled out, Vlad will wake up.
Oh, okay.
But because Vlad was no longer awake and able to control his army, his entire undead army dissolved into ash and fell to the ground. And that was the end of the First War. He woke up 6 years later, enraged, because he was so close.
Oh, okay, so the dude who like pushed him off the cliff and got him impaled, what happened to him? Did he die finally, or did he like...
Oh yeah, he died. He died on impact. The walls at Altdorf are over 100 feet high. He died on impact. His organs were Vlad had already ripped his belly open. His organs were spilling out, and he, in a surge of adrenaline, he went from laying on the ground to springing into Vlad and throwing him off the edge of the embattlements in a desperate final hope.
So was this the dude who killed him ever Emperor, or was that just you
that was misspoke. Wilhelm III was effectively the Pope. It's called the Grand Theologian, but he was the Pope of Sigmar. So remember, Sigmar's priests are warriors.
Yeah, these are the religious folk who actually do stuff in battle, not just
So don't think of him as like the Pope we know. Think of him as like Battle Pope.
I think more like in 40K in Space Marines, the dude who, while in his name implies he's religious, he's actually the hype man and kicking ass.
Or like in BattleTech, where the Pope rides a battle mech into battle on a crusade.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Battle Pope. So we get into the Second Vampire War, in which one of Vlad's embraced vampires, known as Conrad the Bloody, who is considered by far the most bloodthirsty, savage vampire to have ever lived. This is Vlad the Impaler of vampires.
Yeah, the art you're showing me is giving me off that energy.
That decorative fin behind him with those spikes. He will in the middle of battle. He will, like, the people he kills, he will cut off their head and put it on the pike, and then it funnels the blood down in front of him where he can sip on it while he's fighting. This is that kind of vampire.
The Predator would like to know your location.
Yes. Well, Vlad von Karstein was patient and calculating and everything. Conrad von Karstein was he's just insanely violent, over the top, psychopath, sociopath, crazy bastard.
Yeah, this art is giving me that energy. Though, quick side note. All the armor makes sense, except his weird, like, things on his knees, on the armor. Just, it's like, dude, how do you expect to kneel? What the hell? Anyways. But, okay, anything else about this sicko?
So, we have... He leads the Second Vampire War. And the Second Vampire War... There's a 7-year break between the first and second. And the Second Vampire War lasts 70 years. And... So, to take a page out of Tolkien's book, they do a battle of 4 armies, where 3 grand imperial armies from 3 different provinces meet Conrad at the fortress city of Middenheim. It is a bloodbath, and the Imperials are losing. Conrad had a plot going, where instead of him becoming emperor, a puppet would become emperor. But what he didn't know was the warhammer Gal Maraz that the emperor has to wield. The emperor, once you're elected emperor, you have to pick it up, and the hammer accept you. He didn't know about that. He thought it was just a tool from the dwarves. He didn't know it was literally empowered by the soul of Sigmar.
Right, and if in the lost episode, I remember correctly, even if you get voted unanimously, if it deems you unworthy, you can't be emperor, correct?
Correct. And so a man named Helmut of Marienburg was under the control of Conrad and was actually already starting to turn into an undead minion. And Conrad had had his servants who were less bloodthirsty manipulating who was going to get elected emperor. And so Helmut got elected emperor. But he began to act erratically. And when he touched the hammer, his skin began to peel off. His eye popped out of his skull. And it was revealed he had been turned into an undead minion as the hammer slew him from touching it and turned him to ash.
So like the scene, kind of like the scene at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, basically.
Yes. And Conrad was furious because his ploy had been foiled by a magical artifact created 2,000 years ago. and he threw himself headlong at a fully arrayed army. But what he didn't know was the location of the battle he had chosen had a functional underway highway. These are like the highways the dwarves build underground to move between keeps.
Oh boy.
And the dwarves had sent an army. So during the battle with the Elector Counts that he thought he was going to win, a dwarven army under Gruffbad emerges with an elite corps of warriors who are freshly stimulated on barrels of Bugman's brew.
Oh boy, here we go.
Which is not only is this an amazing like alcoholic drink, like humans can't even consume it, it's that alcoholic. But for dwarves, it enhances their strength and toughness and battle frenzy.
This is what Red Bull wants to be, basically.
So, at a pivotal moment where the battle's in pitch, suddenly, from both of his flanks simultaneously, dwarven slayers, elite hammerers, and Ironbreaker regiments, led by Gruffbad on a platform for a king, come running out from both sides, and behind them are dwarven rangers on Bugman's brew, whose adrenaline is going so fast that the poet said that the rangers with their rifles were firing as fast as elven archers with bows. These are muzzle-loaded rifles that you have to pour powder and shot into, and they're just pumping away round after round after round, and so his entire army is smashed, and he's beaten back, and he finally just Conrad snaps because everything he's working towards is just lost, and he loses his mind, and he wanders away from the battle. His army disintegrates. He's nothing more than a feral. He's just a feral undead vampire at this point. And the dwarves hunt him down and impale him on the Sylvania Elector Count sword Runefang and leave his body there for everyone to see. Because the Elector Counts all get magical swords to show their Elector Counts. That was a thing we discussed that we'll have to go over again. But the point is that, like, that was the end of the Second War. And the Third War lasts 21 more years, in which Manfred von Karstein, who is von Karstein's, Vlad von Karstein's, what could be described as his most loving... If Vlad von Karstein could have a son he loved, it would be Manfred. And if Manfred von Karstein could have a father he hates, it would be Vlad.
Those what? Those are some contradictions.
Vlad loves Manfred with all of his heart. Manfred hates him.
Is this like emo Shadow the Hedgehog energy?
No, it's like legitimately no love like Christian love, no love like parents who want to control you love.
Oh, that kind of love. Okay, that makes a lot more sense
Like,
now you explain.
Vlad believes he's doing the right thing, and Manfred resents him for constantly getting in his way.
Okay, that's interesting. It's like it's one of those he has as kind of an evil character. He has good intentions, but unfortunately, he's not going about it the right way. I can't get over how much of an edgelord this character is, though, now. Do we have a picture of this edgelord?
Yes, we have a picture of this edgelord. And this is the one time that I will ever praise Stirland. The people who serve boiled beer and fish head pie. No one wants to go to Stirland. Fuck Stirland. But this is the one time I'll praise Stirland. Because Manfred, like Vlad, was cold and calculating and very, very much the type of person who would, like, go out of his way to try to figure stuff out. And then have, like, plans within plans within plans. Well, at his last battle, he recognized the battle was lost and attempted to run away. The Elector Count of Stirland jumped onto someone else's griffin because the person who normally rode the griffin was dead and pursued him. And he was the only one to catch up to him. And he tore off Manfred's arm that contained the ring Vlad used to resurrect himself. A gift from Vlad. And Manfred died. Because with the ring removed, Manfred became mortal. He and the Elector Count both died, sunk into the depths of the swamp that they fought in. Griffin slayed, the only remnant of the battle that could be found, was the ring Vlad used to resurrect himself, the Elector Count's Runefang sword, and the body of the griffin he rode to fight there. And that was the end of the Vampire Wars, finally. From then on, Vlad still rules Sylvania, and there are constant border wars between him and the Empire, but the Empire has active, large military forces trying to both destroy him, but also focused on making sure they also contain him.
Okay.
And Sylvania is considered the lost province because it's ruled and run by necromancers. And the only reason that they try to contain Sylvania at this point is because the halflings make really good food, and the halflings of the Moot live next to Sylvania.
And as we mentioned in the halfling episodes, apparently halflings don't taste good to vampires.
Oh no, they don't. The halflings are like the worst. A vampire would rather drink a scaving than a halfling.
Which I just find it ironic. You would we would discuss this, but I just find the irony that in theory a species that eats so well would taste so bad. You'd think it would be the opposite, but
Well, it's because halflings are hyper resistant to magic and chaos, so they contain none of the magic from the realm of chaos, or none of the magic from the realms, from the winds of magic inside their blood that would make it appealing for a vampire to drink from. It's like eating stale white bread.
ugh.
You can do it, but it's not going to taste good.
And anyways, yes. So yeah, Vaughn just stops trying to declare war and just focuses on border conflicts, and that's it.
Yeah, but that's history-wise. As far as like society-wise, Sylvanian nobles are exclusively vampires now.
It makes sense.
But the Sylvanian nobles are basically content to live forever in luxury, leaving Manfred and Vlad and Isabella to do any of the vampiric expansion or they basically are like, you know, they're like, we're fat and happy, leave us alone. And to emphasize like how over the top luxurious and depraved these people are, Count Marcilla von Karstein experiments on his townsfolk, in one instance ordering them to eat nothing but grass to study the effects of the diet.
Commentary on Germany in World War II, probably.
And then on the flip side, his wife, Lady Carlota, once forced husbands to execute their wives if they committed the crime of bearing more than 2 children, because she didn't want her town to grow too fast, as it might spread over her favorite patch of lilies. They have become depraved monsters.
Yeah, I can see that.
There's also a different type of tax, a blood tax, paid by the peasant population to all vampire lords in Sylvania, and it's basically your second born is going to be vampire food. Is the short. It depends on village to village, pays a different amount of tax to their vampire lord to sustain their vampire lord.
Yeah, okay. Welcome to Warhammer.
On the flip side, it's very different in some, like an example, and every vampire lord has different rules and regulations regarding this tax. Like Countess Gabriella refuses to feed on the lowest of peasants and only taxes affluent townspeople who can afford to have more than one set of nice clothing. And she keeps them alive after feeding, so that she can use them as hostages against the middle and upper classes.
that went from progressive to kind of very
No, the same way that I would send my in the Middle Ages, I would send my kid to you to use as a hostage, so we wouldn't declare war on each other.
yeah, it went from progressive to manipulative really fast.
Yeah. But that's the Sylvanian vampires. They are horrible creatures. They may start out with noble intentions, but they do all universally because of the curse of vampirism and the way that it makes you, the way that humans grow bored of the same highs and thrills and have to get more of those highs and thrills. Seek out even grander highs and thrills until there's nothing to reach for.
And we don't have to use modern examples. We don't have an Alucard from Hellsing. We don't have a Blade. We don't have any of those characters walking around.
We do have a Blade.
Okay.
And so there is a vampire. I'm getting her name now.
Okay.
It's one of Felix's tragic love stories where, like...
Oh, no, you've told me a bit about this one, but go on.
Yeah. Ulrika Magdova Straghov, daughter of Kislev, vampire huntress, is kind of the Blade of the setting. She is birthed from the von Karstein vampire line. And she actively hunts other vampires, necromancers, and in some cases, the doers of chaos. And while she does it, she also looks hot doing it.
Yes. Excuse me, Fee. I'm going to need a moment. Okay, the first one was hot, but the second one's even is a different kind of hot, but also just really goddamn cool. Like, this is also the appeal why, like, I don't believe in waifus, but if I was to make a ranking, Sarah's Victoria would be like S tier, because I'm like, she looks great, but also that she could kick my ass.
So her swords are magical weapons. But her bow's the most interesting magical weapon because it's not the bow that's magical, it's the arrows she makes for it.
Ooh,
the arrows she makes for it are dipped in the blood of holy priests by the Temple of Sigmar, so that they can become specially enchanted to slay vampires and the undead. One of her arrows can pass through several undead corpses, disintegrating every one of them before it has lost enough velocity to no longer kill.
Okay, so far one of my new favorite characters. Like, we can put like her in that category. And does she stay for the most part this like focus on this? She doesn't like deviate and like start doing really fucked up shit.
She does not. When given a choice by the person who was teaching her how to be a vampire, to either make a person a vampire or kill him, she refused to do either, and put him and used her vampire power to put him to sleep instead. And her teacher snapped his neck before they left, to prove the point that she wasn't going to let that go. Eventually, she would break her vow to Gabriella and entirely and break away from her and become the vampire hunter she is now. She's a known vampire, and yet like they'll let her walk into a holy temple to get fresh arrows because they know what she's using them for.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think it's like she gets the pass because they know why even though she is a vampire, she's the good, as they, she's one of the good ones. So,
yeah.
And I know you already said this, and she doesn't ever have a deviation from this. She doesn't suddenly become like fucked up in the head. She, at least from all the novels, she stays on this path.
She gets a spinoff from Gotrek and Felix. And she gets 3 entire novels to herself. And she gets to come back to Ghost Trek and Felix after those 3 novels. And hang out for an adventure to show what she's become.
Yeah, and one of my new favorite characters. Yeah,
So-
I love her. She's awesome.
So her dagger is called the Silver Dagger, and no armor or ward can turn it away. Its innate and magical properties pass through all forms of protection. So if she stabs you with it, it's going in. And her other weapon, Blood Shard, traps the soul of the victim inside to ensure they cannot be resurrected.
Oh.
So she stabs you with the dagger to kill you, and she stabs you with the rapier to make sure that your vampiric soul is forever trapped. And she fights like a Florentine. So, just for those who don't know what Florentine is, it's rapier and dagger, and the dagger is often held upright, like, not how most people hold a knife today. But the reason why the dagger is held that way is because the rapier is actually the defensive weapon, and the dagger is what you want to get in and kill people with. You're using the rapier to deflect the person's main weapon and the dagger to attack.
Which makes sense. Now, okay, we didn't get into it because there's obviously in different lore, like, so as a vampire, like, can she go out in the daytime, garlic, all
No.
the things, like,
No, she for her to go out in the daytime, she has to wear layers of protective ointments and stuff and those burn off as the day goes. She often has to cover her skin during daytime, but most of the time she's only out at night. And the other major person I have to mention here is Hemric Kimmler and Krell.
okay.
Hemric
Also,
Kimmler.
go on.
Go ahead.
Well, mine is okay. How much? Because the standard ways we're always told in mythos of vampires' weakness is daylight, stake through the heart, crosses, and garlic. How does the Warhammer universe treat those?
Garlic, shove it down their throat. The symbols of Sigmar burn, but only based upon how much faith the person using it has, and how much blessing the person from Sigmar, the person using it. So, like, a normal person holding up a symbol of Sigmar while they're all fearful and cowering, saying, stay back, at most the vampire will grab it and it will leave, like, the kind of burn where you leave your finger on the stove for a split second. It hurts, but a priest of Sigmar, imbuing it with holy power, can smite a vampire with that thing.
Okay, and also just to get back to it, I know I'm nitpicking, but the garlic thing, so it's not like in somewhere if you wear a necklace of garlic, it will act as a repel. You have to use you have to. Okay, so you could, in theory, yeah, gotcha. Go on. So yeah, we did holy symbol. All right, yeah, I think so. Yeah, continue.
Hemric Kimmler is a necromancer who lives in Sylvania, who is opposed to Vlad von Karstein, but only because he wants to be the one in charge. And the important thing with Kimmler is he has rediscovered Nagash's secret to lichdom.
Oh.
He is referred to as the Lich Master because he has figured out how to be effectively immortal and raise whole armies of the undead. And he has raised the most unique undead creature to exist, and that is Krell. And this is a picture of Krell. Krell was once a Chaos Champion who walked the world in the days before Sigmar himself. Back when Chaos was at its strongest point. And Himmler figured out a way, and yes, his name is Himmler, as a reference to Heinrich Himmler. That's this man's morals and principles. But Kimmler figured out a way to go to the tomb of Krell, and bring Krell's soul back and put it into his former body, and then make his former body an undead, nightmarish level champion of nightmarish in Warhammer terms, which means it's extra nightmarish, but also to control him. He made the ultimate undead warrior, and that's what Krell is. And that's why Kimmler is famous, is because he keeps coming back despite the fact he's being killed over and over again, because he's figured out the secret to lichdom, and he made the ultimate undead warrior. As far as military units, you have zombies and skeleton warriors. Sylvania will also raise peasant levies, and then we get into the undead shenanigans. So they have people who have been recently deceased who get turned into crypt ghouls, which are cannibalistic ghouls. Then they take multiple people and fashion them together to make. They take multiple crypt ghouls and fashion them together to make crypt horrors.
Okay.
Loyal servants, mortal servants who die, get turned in. Get to have their souls kept in their corpse and turned into graveguard, which, unlike skeletons and zombies that kind of shamble and move and you know, they're these guys actually still have, you know, vim, vigor, and movement to them, and are scary fast. They also have intelligence.
So Skeletor, basically.
Yeah, they're Skeletor. Necromancers and wizards that are re-raised get turned into Karn wraiths, which float above the world, and their scythes are magical in the sense that their scythes pass through anything and only embed themselves in living flesh, meaning armor is completely useless.
Magic bullshit, go.
Mothers of mages get a special fate. They become spirit hosts, which are literal undead ghosts that are here to kill you.
Fun.
And then we have the crafted abominations.
Oh, okay.
We have Vargeists, which are giant bats that are crafted from dozens of bodies.
Jesus.
And then we have the non-flying versions of those that are the size of kind of halfway between an ogre and a giant, called Vargoths, and they're used as living engines of destruction and siege engines.
Jesus, that's just pure hate right there.
They also have cavalry. They raise undead horses. And those are ridden by their by their graveguard, referred to as Black Knights. Blood Knights are undead knights who've been who were once knights of Sylvania, who are raised to become Blood Knights and are in service to the Blood Dragon line specifically. And they are still somewhat flesh, and they're technically vampires, but they're vampires used like mass shock cavalry.
Okay.
So they're not, they're still under control of the one who gave them the blood kiss. Then we have Hex Wraiths. Hex Wraiths are what happens when ethereal spirits are coalesced into a single entity and then turned into shock cavalry that literally look like Grim Reapers on skeletal horses. Because 80% of what you have with an undead army is the fear and terror.
Yeah.
They will also employ arisen wolves, dire wolves as they're called. They will employ bats that they turn into monsters, and then they will employ their ultimate weapon. Undead hordes can bring down a dragon. Dragons can be turned into undead. Vampire Lord riding Draco Lich is a thing.
Yeah, that's a special level of, well, we're fucked.
When the DM says, fuck you.
Yeah, basically. When the DM doesn't want to do rocks fall, everyone dies, but still wants to kill the party, here you go.
The last thing, the war machines, the actual machines they have are more just magical apparatuses used to augment their armies. So they have carts of corpses called corpse carts that they use to collect the recently fallen dead and turn them into fresh warriors on the battlefield itself. They have black coaches, which, as the name suggests, is the black coach that's spoken of on Gehennaschnacht. And it's just a coach with a reaper on it, being driven by what appear to be undead horses with human faces. Coven thrones are literally vampiric covens power source. So like a bunch of vampires got together and agreed to be friends and blood swore to each other and created this thing, and now one of them rides it into battle. And then the Mortis engine is the culmination of all of these efforts to create the ultimate necromantic revival point that can even revive recently fallen vampires back to their feet and continue the battle. Basically, if a Mortis engine is still functioning, that's what a Mortis engine looks like in its final stage. If a Mortis engine is still functioning, the undead army you're fighting is not going to stop fighting you until you kill that thing.
All of this art is giving me Magic the Gathering if you play only mono black cards energy, because this
is that's what we're dealing with, is just mono black. All the mono black. So, what are your questions as we wrap up?
Well, obviously some questions whenever we do this kind of topic where it's not a quote unquote, like, it is a society, but it's not like, for example, the halflings or the empire where there's...
Hold on 1 second.
All right. Ian, sorry about that long pause. Anyways. Yeah. So what I was getting back to before you checked to make sure nothing was on fire. Certain questions I can't ask because it's like, it almost is like the Vampire Pirates episode, haha, or any of them where it's like they're just a group of people. They're not really, well, I don't know. Or with some of the, my usual questions about, the poverty.
They still have to have an economy.
So the economy, the society roles we'll start with, okay. How, if you're not a noble, I'm assuming you're kind of a peasant and you're fucked.
Yes and no. There is a middle class in Sylvania. They know they live under vampires. They don't have a choice. Because, you try to leave and you're going to get turned into,
Yeah. Unspeakable horrors. Okay. Then we'll go with, at least in Sylvania, I'm assuming because it's vampires, they don't need to eat food, ? How does it handle that bit of the vampire lore beyond obviously blood to sustain themselves?
They may need blood to sustain themselves, but to raise armies, to maintain castles, that kind of... You can't have undead servants as unskilled labor to do that kind of stuff. Because you would have to know what you're doing in order to tell your undead servants how to do it. And you can't constantly be raising more vampires. That creates the problem of there's not enough peasants and too many vampires.
Though, on a side note, I'd be really interested to think about and how a vampire society would work. And how would you make it work in the sense where you have vampires you have your nobles, but you would also have, your working class vampires. That would be an interesting story concept, but that's for a different topic. But to go back to this, okay, so in Sylvania, you have the vampires, you have the humans. So then, though, because it has to be answered in two parts, both in vampiric society and then Sylvania, what is the gender power ratio? Male dominated, female dominated, equal? How does it kind of balance out?
the way that balances out is usually vampiric couples, aka okay, my husband's going to be given the blood kiss, I should get it too. But more importantly, um, female vampires are just as powerful usually as the male vampires, both in direct combat and uh, you know, magic. So they have probably the closest thing in the Warhammer universe to true gender equality. Um, a von Karstein vampire, regardless if they're male or female, is in charge of their own destiny. Vampiric nobles get divorced. Vampiric nobles fight entire wars without anyone ever like knowing or interfering or anything like that. And it doesn't matter if they're male or female, they're both just as lethal. And therefore they have to be given the same amount of respect and due. And on the flip side, this is filtered into like Sylvanian society for like the mortal people. It is not uncommon to see a mother in the fields and a father at home with the kids, because the mother is, strong like bear and will beat the snot out of whoever says otherwise.
And it's not, the father is not emasculated because of the fact that he is staying at home to raise children. Again,
Correct.
welcome on this episode.
Or one of the most famous blacksmiths mentioned in a novel. I forget which one exactly, because like I had to read so much for this, and I read it 2.5 weeks ago because of the delay in recording. But like one of the big things to be mentioned here is like one of the most famous blacksmiths in Sylvania is a woman.
Cool.
And she's so famous that one of the noble vampires has decreed that no one is allowed to embrace or kill her, because her craft is too sacred for the needs of everyone. Like, she makes arsenals of new weapons for the Graveguard that can then be that are good enough quality that they can receive the enchantments of the vampiric lords without shattering. And that's a big thing. Excuse me.
On this episode of Warhammer being weirdly progressive in strange ways.
Yeah. But yeah, it's so like that's a thing, and I'm like, okay, I can get with this.
Yeah, same. Level of poverty if you're not a noble. How common is poverty? And if you are in poverty, what is the welfare system, if there is one?
There's no welfare system.
No surprise there.
If you're in poverty, you're in poverty. There are peasants. There are serfs. It is. If you had to pick a society that was slightly more backwards than if you had to pick a society that was even more ingrained at this point in feudalism than Bretonia, this is it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And it's just like, okay, that's where we are now. But yeah, that's where they are.
Right, and I maybe you answered and I spaced out. So I'm talking about not raising armies, but in this lore, vampires don't eat food. They just get energy and sustenance off of blood.
Yes, but they've gotten creative with it, where they will have blood infused into foods so they can eat it, or they will have the essence of souls and infused into wine so that it's more tasty, that kind of thing. That they go out of their way to still get that kind of human experience.
Yeah, because again, all vampires, at least how this is describing the lore, we're still at once human, so there still is the instinctual need to eat, which I do find is a neat way to at least put that lore in, because that always would bother me. And sometimes any other, like, where they have vampires and they're not eating them, like, yeah. But I do like the little detail about the food, because it's like, yeah, as someone who, like, when you buy raw meat, especially if you bought it not butchered, there can be blood, so that logic kind of tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's my usual questions, because we kind of went over their weaponry already, which was, hey, here's magic bullshit, go. Oh, that does remind me. Because in modern, any vampire story set in modern times, to kill vampire, you use silver bullets. Do vampires have the silver weakness that they do in those
Yes,
stories?
it's why Ulrika's dagger is a silver dagger.
Ah, okay. So I'm assuming when we get to the age, oh, I keep forgetting the name. It's called Pike, where it's you have
Pike-and-shot.
armor, Pike and shot. There are some divisions that probably have silver tip
Witch
bullets.
hunters exclusively carry silver weapons. And not
Hmm.
silver alloy, silver. The entire weapon, including the pommel, is made of silver. And that's so they can slay demons and undead more efficiently. They also carry iron weapons to deal with certain creatures, not steel, iron. Particularly, and they do use silver bullets and other silver implements to help them out.
Huh. Think that's about it on questions on this. I can't really think of much more. I'm sure, like, later I might remember, but I think we've. So you mentioned there was the ones that are just the vampires that are just kind of the Twilight ones. I'm assuming they don't do anything really of note, so there's not much to really talk about on them.
Yeah, the Lamia are a different bloodline and aren't the focus of today. But they do
Ah,
have there are a significant number of them both in Sylvania and in other places. The Lamia tend to be the ones that like catch people in the dead of night and are like, "Hey, I'm a vampire. Do you want to join me?"
oh yeah,
And
I
but
forgot.
they but they're also the vampires who will what's the term? Lie to you, and instead of giving you the blood kiss and turning you into a vampire, they're really just there to drink you dry.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, because I forgot the von Karsteins was the topic of this one. It was. I think that now I really think, yeah, that's kind of about it. Unless there's any other little tidbits you want to, or notable characters.
No, that's everything. That
Cool.
is.
Well,
Go ahead.
no, this was an interesting ride for sure.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad it was an interesting ride. I hope you enjoyed.
Oh, I always do enjoy these. I think there was like one I didn't like because it wasn't you as the topic, but I almost always enjoy these. But I think it's one of those we make it entertaining because it's you and I. You and I we did a whole episode not about Warhammer and we had a grand old time. So yeah, there's that too. So next episode is going to be.
Next episode is going to be the two-parter. The first part of the two-parter where we talk about the Tomb Kings. Because the Tomb Kings are responsible for all the problems. I'm sorry, they are.
Somewhere in a book of Grudge, someone has written some version of a Tomb King, I'm pretty sure then.
Yeah. Somewhere in the Book of Grudges, someone has written a Tomb King. And by a Tomb King, I mean all of them. Because, oh dear lord, the Tomb Kings are... I'm just going to say it, and anyone who plays Tomb Kings is both not going to like that I'm going to say it, and then they're going to nod in agreement. 70 to 80% of the world's problems are the Tomb Kings. And I mean that. 70 to 80% of the world's problems can be linked back to, well, a Tomb King did a thing, and it didn't go well. This is me sitting here going, yep, could have told you that. Anyway, do you have any final thoughts or anything before we close out?
I do kind of like this, reinvigorates my interest of why certain vampire stories do interest me, and kind of even goes back to the why I like free run so much of like, what do you do with characters that are immortal, like that have in theory an infinite lifespan or very long lifespan, and what do they get up to? So
Yeah. And they get up
yeah.
to a lot. And it's kind of cool.
All right, I think let's end it there.
All right. I will see you hopefully next week.
Crossing fingers. I have a busy work week, but we'll figure out something.
Here's hoping.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you for listening to us yap about this.
Yeah. Thank you all. Hit the like button if you're here. Share this with your friends. I'd appreciate it. And in the meantime, we will hopefully see you next week. I have been Fiora, and this has been Ginger, who I love hanging out with, and I'm very glad that he has his apparently new job. Or congratulations are in order.
Thank you. I still gotta, like I said, still gotta go through all of it, but it's a step in the right direction. I look forward to seeing where my life leads from there.
Fair enough. Anyway, good night, everyone. I have to get to do a few more things.
Bye
Or
bye.
good morning, or whenever you watch this. So hi everyone. Yeah, I'm making a Patreon video as is appropriate. And in the meantime, the only engineer of chaos right now is Stagio Rose. I get it. The economy's kind of fucked, but somebody, anybody, get on up there. Executive Studios, Fop Doodle on Assignment Spaghetti, Stargazer Song, Sundancer, Thomas Curry, thanks for keeping the damn lights on. Special Writing Cannons, Drinking Buddy, Solar Aurora, you guys have been here for years and I genuinely appreciate you. Twitty Lounge Pass, Bronze, Sean, you're doing good work. Explosives R&D team, somebody's got to make the explosives around here. Pony Chick, Riney Dragonwolf, Stormy Sky, Zeeb, and the other person that I missed. I'm sorry I missed you. Office Raiders, Brendan Kendall, Insane Scorpion, Justin Rangers, Carl Branson, Legate Lori, which by the way, it's her entire fault that we have any RimWorld series. You should be thanking Lori. Testing audience, Paulus the Mad. Meh? Seriously, your name is Meh? Producers credits, Chaos Blur, or David Birch. Final Sight is the reason why we got to play Vampire the Masquerade over Christmas. You can thank Final Sight. Also, Gary Riviere, he's been here since 2014. Anyway, see you all later.